Good morning and welcome to OSW Daily. If this is your first time coming across the channel, thank you. Appreciate you spending your time with us. So what do we do here each morning? Each morning we review current topics and discuss them with leading experts to get their view and insights. And today I'm happy to have Kyle Took with us. Kyle is ThoughtWire. Kyle is a digital twin thought leader and my go-to person when it comes to understanding digital twins. And if you haven't sort of seen previous interviews that we've done with Kyle, there are links in the description below, links to connect with Kyle as well. So please do check those out because I rewatched some of those videos this morning and they are just so good. So Kyle, thank you for spending time with us today and welcome to OSW Daily.
Hey, Steve, always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure, man. I just had a look at the videos, as I mentioned, there's this in the intro, and I was blown away by the detail and just the way you articulate such a complex topic. So I want to thank you for making time this morning. And, I was also looking, it was July, we last spoke and did a video together. So what have you been doing? How's your summer been? And how's the family?
I've been cooking, man. I'm in Louisiana, and it's been hot and humid this summer. Finally, we're starting to get some fall weather, so I can get my kids outside and actually get them out on their bikes and play without feeling like they're swimming in humid air. But it's been good. It's been a very good summer. We think we're just now getting the point where now that the kids are back in school, now that we're starting to think about going on maybe a trip here at the end of summer, just finally starting to feel somewhat normal again, as much as you can figuratively say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny when when I watched the video before the very first one we did, it was really interesting the timing on when we talked about it and sort of the experiences of remote work at that time and how things have evolved and how it felt so different. Where today, to your point, it almost feels like we're in not a routine now, but we're almost accustomed to living this way, and it'll be interesting to see how things unfold. But I
Oh,
think the sort of
sure.
to start this conversation off today, I think it's probably worth reminding folks who maybe and who haven't maybe watched the previous videos that we've done. What is a digital twin?
Yeah, so I think anyone who's looked into this has probably seen a myriad of definitions around digital twin. And what people need to understand is there's different types of different digital twins. There's different levels of complexity of digital twins, and there are specific, I guess, uses or specific goals that a digital twin is typically going to be directed towards. So you have, digital twins around infrastructure, digital twins around energy. You have digital twins like for what ThoughtWire provides, which is an organizational digital twin for built environment. But when you get into just the digital twin in of itself, I look at digital twin as really having kind of four tiers of hierarchy. So you have discrete digital twins, which is the more traditional digital twin. Um, an example would be like the old industrial version of a digital twin, which is just a digital replication of a physical asset. So that could be an oil derrick, it could be a transmission, an engine. You're just creating a digital model of that object, right? Then you get into more complex digital twins, which is where you're bringing data points from multiple physical assets into a visualization tool, or you're creating a data model around the multiple assets. So this is when you get into what's called a composite digital twin, which is going to provide an additional layer of understanding and context into a more complex object or entity. Then you get into what's called process digital twins. Now, process digital twins is more around real-time dynamic data points. This is when you get into things, and if you think about an office building, it's the movement of people. It's things that are very frequently, constantly changing in that environment, and it really impacts things around workflows, friction points, movement of people, and processes, and looking at the complexities of that type of data. And then you get into where ThoughtWire plays, which is an organizational digital twin, which really brings all of that together. It's really the highest hierarchy of complexity when you look at something like a smart hospital or the built environment, where you're bringing everything all data points that are IP enabled, so physical assets that are IT, OT, IoT. It's bringing together everything around operations of that building, the facilities, the security, um, and all the dynamic data points around processes, workflows, people. So it's really bringing everything into a real-time data model where the data is normalized, it's semantically tagged and associated. And what it does is, as an end result, it provides meaning to all of the noise, all of that data that is historically siloed. So if you think about from a real estate organization or a corporate entity, right, it really creates meaning, context, reasoning around all of this data to help them make more real-time, operational, actionable decisions with that data as it's occurring, versus having everything in a data lake and doing reactive reporting from your BI tool or whatever analytics dashboard you're using that is utilizing that static data that's in that data lake.
So I think you just demonstrated everything I said right at the very, very start. There, Kyle, your knowledge and your ability to articulate is such a complex topic was just summarized there. And you did provide some use cases, but what would be a real practical use case so someone could really grasp fundamentally what happens in a digital twin, from a real estate perspective?
Well, if you think about the types of data in a built environment, you have data that doesn't change very often. Let's say a floor plate, for example. So, where everything sits, who is sitting where is the kitchen, where is the bathroom, where is the elevator, where is the different assets that are mapped on that floor, like IoT sensors and um, fire and safety and converged network panels, those types of things that are going to be mapped out on that floor. Those things don't change, every second, every minute, every 30 minutes, right? Those are things that are going to change at a much slower pace. But then you also have things that are constantly changing, like the fact that Steve is moving from A to B. He's moving from room A to room B. He's going from floor to floor. These are things that are dynamically changing constantly. Air quality, another thing that is constantly changing, temperature constantly changing. So these are things that if you look at a digital twin in a built environment, it's taking that information, the things that are constantly changing in real time, the things that don't change very often, bringing all of that together and associating them, tagging them, and providing context and reasoning around what's actually going on. So in a real world scenario, if I'm a facility manager and I all of a sudden I'm starting to get pinged left and right with these hot cold requests, and I see that they're all coming from a specific area in the building. Let's just say it's floor 13 on the west side of the building. A digital twin should be able to provide context around who are creating those tickets, where are they, what rooms are they in, these tickets that they're creating, are they associated to other CMMS tickets? So maybe there's a fan cooling unit that I know has a filter alarm that's going off that's also impacting that side of the building on the 13th floor. Or, I can see magnitude of impact. So, if I see all these hot cold requests, well, how many people are actually in that side of the building? Are all of these tickets, all these hot cold requests, all of these people that are uncomfortable, is it 3 people or is it 50 people? Right? That should provide information, insight to me as a facility manager on how critical these hot cold requests are. So if I know it's impacting a large number of people, if a digital twin has the proper tooling on top of it, you could apply what's called a reasoning engine that could say, okay, well, it's impacting 50 people. That should be a higher priority than all of these other notifications that are coming into me as a facility manager that's only impacting 2 or 3 people, right? So it should move that to the top of my priority list, right? And create intelligent notifications, right? Which your typical CMMS platforms are very transactional. They're not providing you that additional layer of context, that additional layer of reasoning, and allowing the system to think on behalf of facility managers to reprioritize those tickets as they come in real time. Basically triages all of those tickets.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, thank you for that complex answer. And I sort of I go through that and I go that's really ideal. That's a beautiful world to be created in, right? But each building isn't created the same. Each size of building and floors that people occupy is not the same. So if you
Mhm.
recall like a sweet spot, for where this sort of technology really impacts, how would you define it? What would you say that is?
I think what you really have to look at, see, is you have to look at the company. You have to look at, depending on who is making the decision to do an upgrade and implement a digital twin, what are their goals
Hmm.
for that particular building? What type of experiences do they want to curate, both for an operations perspective and for the experience of the tenants or the employees that are going to be working in that space? A digital twin is really going to be subject to what how sophisticated and how well the original infrastructure or the upgraded infrastructure is really going to determine how complex of use cases you can solve for with a digital twin. If you try to take a digital twin and your end goal is energy efficiencies, right, and you try to implement a digital twin in a building that has a pneumatic system where nothing's IP enabled as far as the HVAC is concerned, all you can change is airflow. You're not able to change set points, right? So you're not really going to achieve an ROI by decreasing energy consumption if you try to leverage a digital twin for that purpose in a building with a pneumatic HVAC. It's just you're not going to be able to do it,
Right,
right?
right.
Because you can't create micro load shed events like you would in a modern building that has a modern building automation system, HVAC system, and lighting system. Is in that type of building, if your goal is to lower energy consumption, carbon footprint, you want to achieve the emissions goals that a lot of companies are faced with right now. A digital twin can, in that type of environment, create dynamic set points in real time based on all of the things that are constantly changing in the building. So as humidity changes, as lighting situations change, as temperatures change, and as people flow changes within that building, a digital twin that has command and control of the BAS lighting HVAC can dynamically change set points, create micro load shed events in areas that are no longer occupied in real time versus it being on a set schedule.
So, I mean, that it sounds awesome, right? But it sounds really complicated and really, really hard. And you kindly sent me a white paper, and I just want to pull up a graphic that sort of you did include in that white paper. That white paper, there's links in the description below, folks, that you can get access to it. But it's making digital twins work in the real world, the ThoughtWire advantage. And explains what a digital twin is, but then there is actually a graphic that really just illustrates beautifully the digital twin that ThoughtWire put together. And again, it is complex, but it really allows a really good visual to actually see the various stages that which everything goes through, from data sources to connected factory to core services. And it's really is a fantastic read. And is there certain elements of this, Kyle, that you think are the more critical elements that people should be focusing on or thinking about if they're going to initiate something like this?
Well, if an organization is looking to go down the path, if they're going in their digital transformation journey, they're wanting to future-proof their buildings, they're wanting something that's going to create the foundation and also create the opportunity for them to replicate an ecosystem across a large portfolio. I mean, a digital twin is certainly the way to go. But I think when you look at the white paper and its components, if you start looking at the situation on, one is why would I go down the path of a digital twin in the first place? You can read in that article some of the examples within, the digital twin in CRE. There's also an example for those in the audience that are in the healthcare space, specific examples of what we've done in healthcare space. But I think understanding digital twin as far as the types of digital twins, how they're utilized, and what some of the real life use cases are. But I also think if you look at the graphics that are in that article, it really gives you an example of some of the types of systems that can be integrated, that can be semantically tagged, and provide additional context. But even that white paper, it's only going to get you so far. I would recommend if you're looking to go down the path of digital twin is find a partner. that understands digital twin, who has done digital twin projects in corporate and commercial real estate. Some of the AEC firms that are out there that
Yeah.
have invested a lot of time in understanding the outcomes, the use cases, the KPIs that are important to most organizations. Um, I would recommend really finding some help, because in my experience, the majority of organizations that I have engaged with, one, have never, prior to talking to me or prior to starting the process, have never really explored digital twin. They've never understood how to acquire and evaluate a digital twin. They've never, they may not have the appropriate skill sets internally to really grasp what you can actually do with a digital twin. And that's why it's really important for you to find a partner, find someone who's done it, who's gone down this path. It's worth every penny that you would invest to make sure that you make the right decision. Because when you look at a digital twin and you're looking at future proofing buildings, you're looking at this for not just one building, but an entire portfolio. And you're really looking at a broad strategy across your organization or across your portfolio. You've got to make the right decision. And you need something that has a solid data strategy around it that's going to allow you to plug and play building by building and curate a relative or common experience for everybody who's going to be in that building, both operations and occupant. And you need something that's going to enable you to adopt new technologies and plug into that ecosystem 5, 10, 15 years from now, and immediately start taking advantage of the data that these new technologies can bring to bear, and associate those with everything else that you're already doing in that ecosystem, right? And it takes a very, it's not easy, and it's a very complicated project, but there are organizations out there, there are people out there who are extremely intelligent, who eat, sleep, and breathe this every day, that can help you.
Yeah, and thank you for going through that, because in essence, this smart building technology, it's changing so rapidly, and organizations are really concerned. One, they want to do the right thing because of the advantage and the value that it provides, but then it's the cost of one implementing. To your point, the amount of data that has to be correlated, pulled together, synthesized, and then putting all that technology in place, and then it's like, okay, well, will this technology be around for generations, or will it be replaced relatively quickly? I don't know what, or maybe you do know, is how quickly this software gets updated, or how this technology is sort of evolving in a sense of, what is the typical lifespan of some of these technologies?
Well, for the digital twin players, and I don't want to speak for other companies
Right.
that provide a digital twin technology, however they're positioning it in the market. I mean, ThoughtWare is a SaaS model, so we're constantly updating and improving the product, adding new features, so that any company, any building that is utilizing ThoughtWire's digital twin and the applications that we sit on top of that are always getting the latest, the greatest, the best out there. And we consider ourselves innovators in the market and are constantly pushing and thinking 2, 3 years ahead of where the market actually is. So we are constantly, putting the best out there for our clients.
No, no, and thank you for taking that and explaining that. And so, obviously, these days of COVID, right, with the restrictions that are in play, with everything that we're trying to manage, there's a lot of concern from the real estate world. How can digital twins provide benefit in the wake of COVID-19, do you think?
Well, I mean, just with any other use case or any complex challenge that building owners and facilities teams are trying to solve for, I mean, COVID really is going to be in the same type of conversation. It really starts with your foundation, which, from our perspective, is a solid data strategy, right? Because in order for you to monitor and things like social distancing, monitoring social distancing, and then having a process to notify people if they're too close, to have intelligent cleaning, intelligent room booking, and hot desking that layers on the sanitation aspect of things. So, for example, if I'm an employee in a building that has ThoughtWire's digital twin in place, and I want to book a room or I want to book a new seat, well, now in a COVID environment, I also want to know the last time that that spot was cleaned. I
Right.
want to know the last time that room was occupied. I want to know, how frequently fresh air is being pushed into that space. As a facilities team who is now looking at things like humidity levels and saying, okay, well, am I within an appropriate range of humidity in this space? Between, I believe, what is it, 40 and 60%, right? That's the sweet spot. Anything above that, the CDC and the WHO states that it can transmit more easily, or if it's below that 40%, same thing, it can transmit more easily. So, and there's a lot of sophisticated sensors out there that around comfort metrics, IAQ, and other things related to that. So from a digital twin perspective, how do I bring all of the data around people, around air quality, around sanitation, cleaning schedules, ticketing, um, movement of space within a floor plate? All of those things are disparate data points, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a digital twin in place and you're in all of these technologies that I'm talking about, all of these data points, right? There are modern ways, APIs, ways to get that data, bring it into a central real-time data model. And then as ThoughtWire, for example, as we're bringing that data in, we're normalizing it, putting it all in the same language, and then we're exposing that to allow other third parties to be able to take advantage of that data, or a client could use our tooling or our applications that sit on top of our digital twin to answer a lot of these COVID related use cases. So, I mean, that ranges from everything from hands free, processes.
Mm-hmm.
It's, safe distancing or social distancing protocols. It's intelligent cleaning and tracking that, and then also providing that communication to the employee base, because the employee wants to know and they're going to want transparency. Am I safe in the space that I'm working in? Companies are going to have to answer that. But
Right.
if you have an intelligent cleaning use case that is solved for, you can do that. You can communicate that to employees through digital signage, through text, through a smart device and a employee facing application. There's ways to get there, right? So any of those COVID related use cases can absolutely be supported by digital twin, and it really comes to the same root as any other use cases you're trying to solve for in a smart building, which is around the data model.
So, I mean, you provided so many great use cases and really things that people are challenged with and problems we're trying to solve today. But in the context of rolling out a digital twin and that sort of technology, connecting all those various sensors and so on and so forth, what should the audience think in time, lead time, to really, one, evaluating the marketplace, executing a purchase order, and then actually rolling out and having it deployed? What really should be their expectation on that delivery time?
Well, I think right now, with the current state of the real estate market, most companies are going through an RFP process, right? Whether that is corporate policy or it's just being very thorough and trying to make sure that they're selecting, the right horse, to ride along with. So by the time you start an RFP process and go through that, then you go through the procurement phase, and then you go through the implementation and go live and go and then support from there. I mean, it's usually a year-long process. I would love for it to be significantly quicker, and I would love for digital twin to get to a point where it's at a comfort level, like you have some of the investment management, accounting, and ERP type systems like a Yardi or an MRI, where only the largest companies go through an RFP process. But when I used to work at MRI, I mean, it would be a 1 to 3 month cycle, and it would be implemented and you're done, right? For something like digital twin, there's still too much that's unknown. There's not a comfort level with the buyers yet. I think we'll get there, but I think we're a little ways away from that. So typically, what I've seen I mean, a lot of RFPs is usually a 2 to 3 month RFP cycle. A lot of them start with an RFQ or RFI before that, right? Just to narrow down the field. Then they go through the RFP process. More often than not, there is a AEC that is also involved in the process that's holding the hand of the company that's doing the acquisition. Um, then it really just depends on, are we talking about an as-built or are we talking about a new build? Because for a digital twin to go in, you really need things fully commissioned. The data needs to be ready to go if you want the implementation to be as seamless as possible. So for ThoughtWire, for example, if I go into a building, everything's ready to go, everything's commissioned, right? And we can just go in and do what ThoughtWire needs to do. I mean, we can be up and running extremely quick. We can configure everything extremely quick. So I would say a rule of thumb, assuming everything is ready to go, would be 2 to 3 months to have everything brought in and have a company go live. But usually what ends up happening is there's another decision that has to be made for another vendor that they're bringing into this ecosystem that's not determined yet. So that can create a delay, right?
Yeah.
But the way ThoughtWire looks at this and we approach projects is we look at time to value, right? So we look at what's ready to go, what's available day one, and we focus on the things that are going to provide the most value to the client. And we'll focus on those use cases, that functionality, those integrations, and get those things solved for. And then as new technologies are greenlit and they are commissioned, then we can bring in the additional data.
Yeah, and I think important thing that you mentioned there was the fact that, whenever all the a client's data is aligned and succinct, it then becomes very easy to implement. A lot of the work is actually on the client to actually ensure their data is structured in a really consistent way. And then that sort of is often, I find, especially when I talk to my peers, that's the piece that we really underestimate how much work we have to do as the client to allow the technology to really do its work,
Mhm.
implementation. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
I
Um,
think having a solid data strategy and having that foundation is absolutely paramount when you're looking at going down this path for
mhm,
sure.
mhm. Yeah. Look, Kyle, thank you for everything, sharing your wisdom, sharing your thoughts, and being on OSW Daily today. Folks, please do reach out to Kyle. Do reach out, read the white paper, anything you want to know about digital twin. He's the guy. So Kyle, thank you. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful day, man. I'll speak to you
Hey,
soon.
you too, Steve, man. I appreciate it. Always love chatting with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Take care.
You too.